So the Gemara. I'm going to start from Daf Nun Aleph Amud Beis, where the Gemara discusses the halacha that the Mishnah says an Oived Kachavim who creates a getchka even before he serves it, it's also right away. But a Yisrael who creates an Avoda Zara, it's not also until he serves it. Zog the Gemara. The Mishnah is following the Shita of Rabbi Akiva. The Tanya, Avoy Tevedun es Abei Ta'abdun es Kol HaMekayimos Asher Ovdu Shalom Goyim. What is this pasuk referring to? Zogt Rabbi Shmuel, B'chelim shenestamshu behen la'avodas k'chav makos b'davar. This pasuk, and everybody agrees, even Rabbi Akiva, is referring to kelim that were used to service Avodah Zarah, and they have to be destroyed. They're also bano. Zokti Gemara, Yochel Osum v'loy gomer. If the kelim were made but not completed, gomer v'loy hiviyum, they were completed but not yet brought to Avodah Zarah, or hiviyum, even if they were brought to Avodah Zarah v'loy nishtamshu behen, but they were not yet used for the Avodah Zarah. Yochel Yehu Asurim. I would think that the kelim are also because they were prepared for the Avodah Zarah. Talmud Loimer Asher Ovdu Sham Agoyim. Dafke, the kelim that the goyim served with, she'ein asurim ad sheyavdu. Mikan amru, from here we learn that avodas kechavim shel oived kechavim, the getchka of a goy, eina asura, will not be asur ad shete aved, until the goy actually served the avodah zarah. V'shel Yisrael asur miyad. But if a Yisrael makes an avodah zarah, that's also right away. That we have not yet explained where that comes from. We're first focused on the first halacha. That the avodah zarah of a goy only becomes also when it's used. We know it because it says Asher Avdu Sham Hagoy. Divrei Rabbi Shmuel, that is the shita of Rabbi Shmuel. Not like our Mishnah. But Rabbi Akiva and Mechilaf Advarim. Rabbi Akiva says exactly the opposite, like he says in our Mishnah. Avodas kechavim shel oived kechavim is a sur miyad. That's also right away. But for Shel Yisrael, ad shetei aved, a Yid who makes an Avodah Zarah, the Avodah Zarah does not become also bano until the Yid actually is Oived Avodah Zarah. Amar Mar. Let's analyze the brisa that we just quoted. The kelim shnestamshu behen la'avodas kechavim makos b'davar. The brisa says that this pasuk is referring to kelim that were used for the Avodah Zarah. Frankly, Gemara, that's not what the words of the pasuk says. It says Avid Abnas Kol Mekaimos. Mekaimos is the real estate. It's not the kelim. Zok Gemara, true. But the pasuk surely can't be referring to the real estate. The Loi Mitzuri, we already know that the land never becomes also bano. The Avodah Zarah could be on the mountain. But the mountain itself, the real estate itself, will never become an Avodah Zarah. So therefore, when the pasuk says "Abet Abnas Kol Mekaimos," it can't mean to destroy the place. It must mean to destroy the kelim that service it. And now we're going to turn on to Daf Nun Beis Amud Aleph, which is today's Daf. Teneu Inyan LeKelim. Say that this pasuk is referring to kelim. Mikan Omru. From here we know avodas kechavim shel oived kechavim eina asura ela chitov. From here you see that the getchka of a goy, the avodah zarah that a goy made, won't be asur until it's served. Now right away that doesn't make any sense because we said it's speaking about the kelim that are mishamish the avodah zarah don't become asur until they're used. Who's talking anything about the avodah zarah itself? The Gemara is going to get to that kasha in just a minute. V'shel Yisrael miyad, but a Yisrael that makes an avodah zarah, that becomes also right away, even before it's served. Frank the Gemara about the kelim ukimna law. Did we not say the pasuk is speaking about kelim? It's not speaking about the avodah zarah itself. Amakra, in this pasuk itself, there's a hekesh from the kelim to the avodah zarah itself, because it says later on in the pasuk, Asher atem yorshim oisam es Elohim. So the kelim was Asher atem yorshim oisam. And Es Elohim says it also applies, the same halacha that applies to the kelim applies to the avodah zarah itself. Makish Elohim lekelim. Ma kelim achi yavdu. Just like kelim, the pasuk says until they're used, they're not also bano. Avalahem nami achi yavdu. Now, Rabbi Kiva agrees by kelim they don't become also until they're used. Where Rabbi Kiva disputes Rabbi Shmuel is that might be the halacha by kelim, but the avodah zarah of a guy that becomes also right away because he doesn't hold to the hekesh. Rabbi Kiva de makish, he doesn't say be makish the beginning of the pasuk, which is speaking about kelim, to the end of this pasuk, which is speaking about Zara. Amarlach es hifsika inim. It says in the pasuk, Asher atem yoshim loisam, and then there's an S, and then comes a leheyo. S says, don't learn the end of the pasuk from the beginning of the pasuk, although kelim that you're used to v'shamish avodah zarah only become also when they're used, but the avodah zarah itself, if a goy makes an avodah zarah even before he serves it, it will be also. Zoktu marvaiter Rabbi Shmuel. We have a good makar that the avodah zarah of a goy does not become also until he serves it. But Rabbi Shmuel said another halacha. The Yisrael da asur miyad minalei. How does he know that the avodah zarah that a yid makes is also right away, even before he serves it? Zok the Gemara, svarahu. Maybe it's just a svara. When a guy makes avodah zarah, it's only asur once it gets served. So the svara is that the avodah zarah that a yid makes should be more chomer. The Yisrael da asur miyad. Maybe a Yisrael is different. And the name of the Yisrael, klalo klaloi. Maybe the avodah zarah that a yid makes doesn't become asur at all. Zok the Gemara, that time is stopper. Hash the geniza boy. We know that you have to destroy the avodah zarah so no one can have enough of it. Itzur la mitzvah. Are you telling me it's not asur? Zok the Gemara. So maybe it's just like the avodah zarah made by a goy, and that it also only becomes asur once it's served. Amar Kra, Zok the Bishmo, we have a pasuk. It says, "Veschataschem asher asisem es egel." Your chet that you made the egel doesn't say your chet that you served the egel. The chet that you made the egel. Ishas asiya kam lebechet. The moment they make it, there's already an avera. Zok Gemara, I'm not disputing that there's an avera. Ema hanamili to make him gaber bechet. Yes, it's an avera to make an avodah zarah, but it doesn't mean it becomes asur ba'ana. Itzur la mitzvah. Amakar, we have another post. It says ora ish asher yasa pesel umasech. When is the person or asher yasa? As soon as he makes the pesel. Mishas asiya kam lebar. Zok Gemara, the same thing. Ema hanamili to make him gaber bar. Merely making the avodah zarah even before you serve it, that gets an aura. The person is cursed for that. But who said the avodah zarah itself becomes asur? Itzur la mitzvah. So Gemara, because at the end of the pasuk of aura it says Avas Hashem ksiv. The avodah zarah that was made doesn't mention that it was serviced is a toyeva. So that's how Rabbi Shmuel sees that the moment the yid makes the avodah zarah, it's a toyeva, it's asur b'no. Rabbi Kiva, who holds it's not asur b'no right away, davar hamevi l'dei toyeva. All the pasuk means, but Avas Hashem means this getchka that you made, that your aura for making it, is something that's going to become a toyeva once it is served. So now we took care of Rabbi Shmuel shita. Now the Gemara is going to focus on understanding Rabbi Kiva shita. Rabbi Kiva avodas kechavim shel ovid kechavim dasura miyad minolei. How does he know the halacha that he said in the Mishnah that the moment the guy fabricates the avodah zarah, even before it's served, it becomes asur b'no. Amar ula amar kra pesilei Elohayim tisrifun me'ish. The pesel is asur b'no, it has to be destroyed. Misha pasloi, the moment it was already carved out, nasaloya, it becomes a getchkin. Therefore, it's asur b'no right away. Ve'edich, Rabbi Shmuel holds it doesn't become a getchkin. He uses that for a different limud, liched the Tani Rabbi Yosef. The Tani Rabbi Yosef, how do you know that a goy could denounce his getchka and it will become ois asur b'no? It'll become ois avodah zarah. Shenemar pesilei Elohayim tisrifun be'eich. Pesilei Elohayim, if they passel it, tisrifun be'eich, but there are those who are goyris tigadeo, not tisrifun be'eich. Or there are those who learn that at the end of the pasuk it says v'lokach talach, meaning if they passel it, then it's no longer an avodah zarah. That's what you need a pasuk for. So the question is, ve'idich, how is Rabbi Akiva going to know this halacha that a goy could be mevatel as avodah zara. Nafkalei the Shmuel, he could learn it out from the limud that Shmuel taught us. The Shmuel Rami. Shmuel pointed out a seemingly contradiction within the pasuk when they obey, because the pasuk does lesach moed kesef v'zav aleim, which is mashma that it's also, and then the pasuk says uksiv l'kaklach, and you should take it for yourself. Can you take it for yourself, or is it also for you? Haketzah. There's two ways to read the beginning of the pasuk of Psilei Lahed. If you carved it out to make a getchke out of it, even before you served it, it's also about no. But but if you were mevatlet, speaking about the goy, if the goy is mevatlet, then it becomes. Okay, so now we understand how Rabbi Akiva knows that the avodah zara of a goy, the moment he makes it, it's also about no, even if he didn't serve it. Rabbi Akiva but Rabbi Akiva also said the Yisrael Asheteopik. The avodah zara of Yisrael doesn't become also until he serves it. I mean, no long, where does he know that from? Amar Yehuda, Amar Kra. We have a pasuk at the end of the pasuk of the Or. It says, Or, someone who makes an avodah zara, v'samba seiser, and puts it in a hidden area. What does putting it in a hidden area have to do with Isser? You know what v'samba seiser must mean? It must mean achiyasa l'dvarim shabaseiser. It's only also when you serve it. How do people serve avodah zara? Avada b'seiser. He doesn't want Bezdin to find out, and then there'll be complete misa. So until you make that avodah zara b'samba seiser, and you go hide with it to be over it, it won't be also. So you see from that pasuk that a yid will not, his avodah zara does not become also until he's over it. What about Rabbi Shmuel who holds also right away? The b'samba seiser tells you. How do you know that the geshka of a yid is osher b'noah, that has to be buried away, never to be seen? How is Rabbi Akiva going to know that the avodah zara of a yid is osher b'noah? He could learn it from the memory that Reb Chisda said in the name of Rav. Don't plant an asherah near the mizbeach. Ma mizbeach ton gniza. We're comparing a mizbeach to an asherah, just like a mizbeach, which is kodesh. It needs to gniza. It's also no. It's kochim. Af asherah to the gniza. The idach. What is Rabbi Shmuel going to do with this pasuk? When we boil the chiddush shlokish, that's to tell you the chiddush of shlokish. The Amar shlokish. If someone appoints a dayan who's not appropriate, he's not honest, he's not learned, it's as if he planted an asherah tree. So right near where the Torah tells us to appoint good dayanim, what's the connection? That appointing a unqualified dayan is like planting an asherah. If you appoint a non-qualified dayan when you had plenty of applicants that were Talmidei Chachamim, so then you did a double avera because you had a choice to do better. Then it's ki'ilu noto eitzel mizbeach. Then it's like you planted a share near the mizbeach because the Talmidei Chachamim, Sanhedrin, are compared to the mizbeach. The number eitzel mizbeach. Beautiful. So now we've clarified the machlokes, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel. Now we're going to go to Sham Shailos. Boy Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna had a shayla as follows: Riseich keli lavodas kacham. You had a metal keli that had a hole in it, and you fixed it by pounding it with a hammer, spinning and stretching out the steel of the keli to seal the hole. And you did it al das to make the keli for the avodah zara, or to be a meshamish of avodah zara. Now what's halacha? Frank the Gemara, we need more detail. Avodas kachavim deman. Who is this belong to? We're talking about a yid, we're talking about a goy. If there was this guy who had this keli and he's preparing it for avodah zara, well, we already know from the beginning of the pasuk, making a keli doesn't make it into an avodah zara. A guy making a keli does not make it into avodah zara until they actually use it. So zog to Gemara, Ilema, I mean, Vein Rabbi Shmuel, Vein Rabbi Akiva, Misham she'avis kechavim hein, and Misham she'avis kechavim ein asurin ad sheyavdu. Ve'ela, what must be the case? Avodas Kachavim Yisrael, it must be that the owner of this, who's preparing it for the Avodah Zarah, is a Yid. Now we need to know who are we asking the Shaila according to. If it's according to Rabbi Kiva, who holds that when a Yid prepares an Avodah Zarah, the Avodah Zarah does not become Osir Bano until it's actually served, I would argue, the getchk itself won't become Osir Bano until you serve it. So Misham Sheh, if I'm just making a keli to serve it Avodah Zarah, mi boy, surely it shouldn't become Osir Bano until it's actually used in the service of the Avodah Zarah. So that can't be the Shaila. Vela liba de Rabbi Shmuel. The Shaila must be according to Rabbi Shmuel. And that is, the Omar, he said, Asura Miyah. He said that the Avodah Zarah that a Yid makes becomes Asur as soon as he makes it, even before it's served. The question is, my Mishamshin Gamrina? How do you look at Mishamshin Avodah Zarah? Do you say Mishamshin Avodah Zarah? Well, let's compare it to the Mishamshin Avodah Zarah that a guy makes. And what's halacha there? Just like when a guy makes Mishamshin, it doesn't become Asur until it's served. Or maybe Minagamar. Compare the Mishamshin to the Avodah Zarah itself. Mahi Asura, just like when the Yid makes the Avodah Zarah Asur Miyad, Afisham Sheh Asur Miyad. Frank the Gemara, that doesn't make sense that that's shot in the Shaila. Because that's a Shaila about any Keli that I'm preparing to be a Mishamash Avodah Zarah. So my area, the Kamiboyle Risechli. Why are we discussing a Keli that was broken that's being repaired? Tiboyle also. The Shaila should be if someone made a Keli, Lechatchila to be Mishamash Avodah Zarah. And there the Shaila would be, is does it become Asur right away, or does it only become Asur once you use it? Zok to Gemara, I'll tell you what Rabbi Amnuna Shaila was. Rabbi Amnuna Misham Tuma Yeshana Kamabayla. He's talking about a keli that was Tameh before it broke, then it broke, and now you're fixing it, and the question is, does the original Tumah come back? Now we know, if it became regular Tumah, like Tameh Mace, not this Durabonin the Tumah of Avodah Zarah. Let's say you had a metal keli, and it became Tameh, it was an oil mace. What did it say, Lagabi that? It's not milurt, Klimatches, Pishutein, Umekablein Tmei. A Klimatches, even if it's not formed into a keli, it's a flat piece of metal, it's Tameh. Nishtabru, if after it became Tameh, it broke, Taharu, it becomes Tar now, it's Oish Keli. But Chazavas and Kelim, if you reform the keli out of this broken metal, Chazru L'Tumah Yishana, it goes back Midrabanan to its original Tumah. Why is that? Why were there Rabbanan going to go back to the original Tumah? Zok Rashi, Utricha Tefillah, needs Tefillah, Ubi Yitzir Shabbos, Mefarish Taima, Gzeira Shema Yoimru Tefillah Bas Shema. We're afraid people will think that if you do Tefillah in one day, it'll be Matar Keli and it really needs Rika. And therefore, the Shaila is, what about not something that's coming with the Raisa, which is what this Mishnah is talking about. What about Vachikam Aboyle, Tihadr Tuma, Hanamida the Tuma Daraisa? Do we say Dafka Tuma Daraisa comes back? Abel Tuma Darabanan Loy, but the Tuma Darabanan of Avodah Zarah would not come back? Or Dumaloishna. So frankly, more if the whole Shaila is, does this Gzeir of Tuma coming back to a metal Keli, if it applies to Tuma Darabanan, why Dafka Avodah Zarah? There are other examples of Tumas Darabanan. V'tiboyle Shar Tumas Darabanan, like Tumas Mashkin. That is included into the Shaila, and it's Chada, Migav Chada, Kamabayla. The Shaila that Rav Nun expressed by Avodah Zarah is really the second step of a two-stage Shaila. And it was as follows. If you're going to say that a standard Tumah D'Rabbanan will not come back after the Keli is fixed, what about a more severe Tumah D'Rabbanan, like Tumah D'Avodas Kachavim? Maybe Mishum Chumer D'Avodas Kachavim, maybe Mishav Yu Rabbanan Katumah D'Raisa. Maybe the Rabbanan would treat it like a Tumah D'Raisa and say it comes back when you fix the Keli, or maybe not. And for the Gemara Teiku, we don't have a teretz in it. Now we have a new Shaila. Boy Minei Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yana. Takrubas Avodas Kachavim shall Oichlin Mahu. We know that Takrubas Avodas Kachavim remains Osir Bano forever. And we also know that it becomes Tomei like a Tomei Mace. The question is, what if someone was Mevatel de Avodah Zarah? Which means the whole thing is batel. We know that the Zivchei Mesim, the Tekruvas Avodah remains also, but this extra Tumah D'Rabbanan that they put on it would that come off? So Zog to Gemara, Boy Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yamai, Trukubas Avis Gechom Shal Oichle Mau, Mima Hanyulu Bito, Letarinu Mitoma, by being Mavatal Davad Zara, so it's Mavatal the whole situation. Would that at least remove the Tuma from it, even though it remains also Bano? Oiloi. Frank Gemara, why are we asking the Shaila by Oichlin, Vitiboy like Caleb? Why don't we ask the Shaila by Caleb? If they will become Tahar after the Avodah Zarah that they serviced was Mavutal. So that's not a kasha. Kalim lekam avoyle. Here in the Islutar b'mikvah, since Kalim, we know, lend themselves to Tahira, because they could be toivel. Therefore, Tomanami bottle. We'll say that when someone's mevatel davadizor that the Kalim are serving, we look at it like it's like being tar, like in a mikvah, because we know Kalim you could make tar, but oichlin, if it's really tamei, there's no way ever to be matar oichlin that's tamei. So kikam avoyle oichlin, and oichlin maybe even if you're mevatlet, you won't be matar the oichlin. Freit the Gemara, why are you clearing by oichlin by b'sham shevadizar the tiboy le'avodah chum gufa? Why isn't the shayla by a getchk itself? Zok Gemara, if you're mevatlet, does the tumah go away? Zok Gemara, avodah chum gufa lemon boyle, for sure the tumah goes off. You know why for sure the tumah goes off? Because even the Easter goes off. So let's turn over to Daf Nun Beis Amud Beis. Even the Surah bottle, for sure tumah nami bottle. Ki come boile, our shaila is only by takruva slavoidus kechavim shall oichlin. My, what will be the Allah? Even the Surah bottle. About the Isra never goes away. Kidur Rav Gidol, like Rav Gidol taught us a couple of days ago, that just like a mace never loses its status of a mace, so too Zivche Mason, Avodah Zarah, Takruba Avodah Zarah never loses its status, remains usher forever. The shaila is, do you say Tumah Namile Botla? Do you say that the Tumah Rabbanan also never goes away? Aidilma Isur Daraisa Loi Botil, Tumah Rabbanan Botil. The Isur Daraisa Vahno on the Takruba Avodah Zarah, that's never going to be Botil. But the Tumah which only Rabbanan maybe it would be Botil. Teku. Nocha Shaila. Boy minei Rabbi Yosy ben Shaul mei Rebbe. Kalim sheshimshu ben beveis Choynov. Kalim that were used in beis Choynov. Choynov was the son of Shimon HaTzadik, and he had to run away, and he opened up a new chapel I believe he opened up a chapel in Mitzrayim, Rashi says, and there's a machlokes if that chapel that he opened up was Avodah Zarah Mamich, or maybe it was L'Shamayim, it was Osir, because there's no heter to be makav karbalos on the boma once the Beis Hamikdash was built, but it wasn't avodah zarah. So Zog to Gemara, what would be the halacha if you had kalim that were left over from Beis Choynov? Would they be able to be used in the Beis Hamikdash? Ma'ashi ishtamshu behem the Beis Hamikdash. The common boile, the shaila, of course, is only a liba demand Omar Beis Choynov la Beis Avodah Zarah. It would only be a shaila if you hold it's not avodah zarah. Because if it was mamish avodah zarah, for sure it would be inappropriate to use those kalim for the Beis Hamikdash. So Zog to Gemara, that is the shayla. The Tnan we learned. So it's only a little bit of Beis Choynov is la Beis Avodah Zarah. The Tnan we learned. Kohanim sheshimshu bebeis Choynov, a kohen that did avodah in the chapel of Choynov. Lo yishamshu b'mikdash b'Yerushalayim. They are forever, for eternity, they are prohibited from doing avodah the Beis Hamikdash. And surely, if they were serving avodah zarah, these kohanim are banned for life from doing avodah the Beis Hamikdash. So the shaila here is kohanim who dekonsinu rabbanon. Maybe a kohen who worked in the house of Choynov, maybe they're punished, they're sanctioned. They're cycle. They didn't have to do it, and they did it, so they deserve to be punished and be banned from the Beis Hamikdash. Aval Kalim, but Kalim are inanimate. They didn't do anything wrong. Loi, maybe they could be used. They're also banned from being used in the Beis Hamikdash. Amalei Rebbe answered, Asur, they're for sure Asur. Asur may, and not only that, Umikra Haya B'Yadenu. I actually had a pasuk to prove that they're Asur. V'shakchanuhu, but I forgot the pasuk. Esvei. So Rabbi Yosef asked Akasha, Rabbi Yosy ben Shaul asked Rabbi Akasha on this psak. And he says as follows: Kol hakelim asher izniach hamelech Achaz b'malchusoi b'moaloi, all of the kelim that the Melech Achaz, who was an Avoda Zara, who was a Russia, who he was defiled when he was a Malchus, when he was moil in the Beis Hamikdash, when his son Chizkiyahu, who was a tzaddik, came to power, hechenu, they prepared them, dikdashnu, and we were makdish them. So this sounds very much like my love, hechenu dak bilanu, we toivel the kelim from their tumah, and dikdashnu dak sheninu, and we made them kodesh, and we used them in the Beis Hamikdash. So I have a right that you could use them in the Beis Hamikdash. Amalei, when Rebbe heard this, he was so thankful, Baruch Atol Shemaim, so Tazan gebenched, because you reminded me of the pasuk from where I brought a raya that it's osir. Because you don't have right shot in the pasuk. Hechenu doesn't mean they prepared it to be used in the Beis Hamikdash. Hechenu means they prepared it by shegadzonu. They were completely buried and put away forever because they're never allowed to be used in the Beis Hamikdash. The Gdashnu, meaning shegdashnu acherem tachteim, we had to get brand new kelim. We actually never used those kelim. And that's how Rebbe learns why it would be usher to use kelim from the Beis Chodesh. Valti. Okay, Zok to Gemara. So Zok to Gemara, that was how he learned. Zok to Gemara, Lema Misayle. Maybe we could bring a raya to Rebbe that in fact it is also Mizrachas Sephonis. There were four lishkas in the Ezras Noshim of the Azara, and the northeastern lishka was, if you walked into the front door of the Azara, it would be on your right immediately. Bo Gonzu Beis Chashmonoi es Avnei Hamizbeach Shiktzu Anshe Yovan. The Anshe Yovan defiled the stones of the Mizbeach. They couldn't be used, which we're going to analyze why not. So therefore, the Beis Chashmonoi took all those stones and stored them away in this lishka, and we're going to soon understand why. What did the Yevanim do with them? They made them into Avoda Zara. They used them for Avoda Zara. They defiled the stones of the Mizbeach by using them for Avoda Zara. So you see clearly, these are not their stones. They can't usher these stones. It's just because it's not a nice thing, and you see that they're usher to be used for the base of it, for the Mizbeach again. They have to put them away. So you have a right to Rebbe that it's not appropriate to use such kelim. Omar Papa, you don't have a right. Because Hazam Kra Ashkach V'Dorosh. There's a pasuk to teach us, in fact, that these stones did become asur. The Chsiv, it says, Ubo B'Pritzim V'Chalalua. Rashi says that the pasuk tells us when the goyim came in and defiled the Beis Hamikdash, the kedusha goes off of the stones and it becomes chulin of hefker. Now, when the Yevanim took them and they made them into an avodah zarah, so they're actually answering it. The Isra no, because a goy made it into an avodah zarah and served on it. So these stones were actual avodah zarah. That's why they couldn't use them for the mizbeach again. But that doesn't mean that the kelim of Beis Chodesh would be also, because they were not used for avodah zarah. Beautiful. Amri. So now let's understand what exactly led them to put these blocks away. So they have blocks that are now also bano, because the goyim made them into an avodah zarah. So Amri, the Chashmonaim came, took over, and they had to figure out what we're going to do with these stones. Hey, Chinavit. Need Perinu, if we could get goyim to bust them up and be mevatel the avodah zarah, and now we should be able to use them for the mizbeach. We can't, because avonim shleimos are marachman. The only type of stones you're allowed to use in the Beis Hamikdash are perfectly smooth stones with no jagged edges. Busting them will leave jagged edges. Ninasrinu, if you say we should cut them with like a steel stone cutting blade and it'll be a perfectly smooth cut, you can't use that in the Beis Hamikdash either. And if you're going to ask, what about the shamir that they used to use? They didn't have it anymore when the Chashmonaim were there in the second Beis Hamikdash. Break the Gemara. So Vamai. So still, why would they leave it? So they can't use it for the Beis Hamikdash. Masking. But V'amaydu they put it in the lishka, lit perinu, let them break up these stones, and now they'll be the Avodah Zarah will be bottled. Let them take the stones home. They can build houses with it. They can use them. Didn't Rabbi Ishia tell us that these stones are 100% chulin? Because Bikshu Lignoit, after the Churban Bayis, there are so many coins from the Geniza of the Beis Hamikdash, from the storehouses, that they were afraid that there were coins all over the place that were also not that belonged to Hektish. And Bikshu Lignoit Kol Kesef Izov Shava'ila. Why? Because we're afraid that they came from the Beis Hamikdash. And the Gemara said, I don't understand. You would answer all of the coins in the world because of the coins in Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim have a ruba dalma. Yerushalayim is not a right. So any coin you find, you go bust your right. You could use it. You don't have to assume it came from the Beis Hamikdash. Alamar Abaye, what they wanted to do is Bikshu Lignois Dinyar Hadriana to ride Shifa. They wanted to lock up and answer any coin that was very similar to the coins that were used b'dafka in the Beis Hamikdash. And now there's a shayla between Rashi and Tosfos if this is a stone that was minted by the Jews with David HaMelech on it, or if it's a coin that was minted by the Romans, but whatever it is, it's a coin that they had many of these coins were held by the Beis Hamikdash. Those were the ones that wanted to answer. If they Tivish Yerushalayim. Until they found the pasuk to say that there's no kedusha left of these coins. Mutter. And what is that? The pasuk we quoted earlier. Once the goyim go and defile the Beis Hamikdash, the kedusha is paka. So if the kedusha is paka from these stones, the same way they were able to keep the coins because the kedusha is paka, let them use the stones of the mizbeach. The kedusha is paka. Zok Gemara, this is a very big thing. It's also by the coins. The coins were in the storehouses of the Beis Hamikdash, but they were never used mamish for avodah. But all of these stones are mamish stones of the mizbeach itself. That's karbanis. Oilos and zvachim were brought on these stones. Heilige stones. Even the shtamish b'legvoya lav oirich ayr l'shtamushi b'hadeta. Technically, it's mutter. It's discharge to kedusha. But you should have a stone from the Beis Hamikdash as a bench in your house, as a wall of your house. It's highly inappropriate. So that way, what did the Chashmonaim do? They put him into this lishka and they locked it away. A goy can be mevatel his own getchka and the getchka of another goy. Mishal chaver means his friend a goy. A yid's not chaver of a goy. But Yisrael ain't mevatel avodas kachavim shaloi b'kachavim. A yid cannot be mevatel the getchka of a goy. A mevatel avodas kachavim, if a goy is mevatel the getchka, so the getchka and all of its support become bottle. So therefore mevatel misham shel. But bigel misham shel, what if you're not mevatel avodah zarah? Just some of the kelim that are used to serve the avodah zarah, then misham shel mutarim, but vihi asura, the getchka still stays asur. Matmi la Rebbe la Rab Shimon Rebbe. Rebbe quoted the following Mishnah to Rab Shimon Rebbe. Oivet gechavim mevatel avodas gechavim shaloi b'shel chaver. Amalei Rebbe. So Rebbe told him, Shanisa lanu b'yaldusach. When you were younger, you taught us a different halacha, and that is that oivet gechavim mevatel avodas gechavim shaloi b'shel Yisrael. The question is, our Mishnah says dafka b'shel chaver, not b'shel Yisrael. Do Yisrael become mevatla? Can a goy be mevatel the avodah zarah of a yid? V'samba seiser. We just learned the number aleph. It says v'samba seiser. When the yid makes an avodah zarah, it's also bad. So how could a goy? It's also not forever. It needs geniza. So how could a goy be mevatel? Amar Rav Hillel Bared Rabbi Valis lo nitzrucha sheyesh le bashutves. The case was, when can a goy be mevatel the avodah zarah of a yid? That's if he's an equal partner in the ownership of that avodah zarah. Frankly, just because he was shotif, how does that justify why it should be mutter, why the goy should be able to be mevatel his partners avodah zarah? When it was prohibited, when the yid is serving as an avodah zarah, a joint avodah zarah, he's not really dealing avodah zarah. Rather, since the goy made it into avodah zarah, the yid wants to show ownership, so the goy shouldn't claim that it's all his. Therefore, the Yisrael Nami Mevatla. Automatically, the Getchka for the Yisrael is bottled because the Yisrael would never made it into an Avodah Zarah. That's one shot. Other pshatim are that, and this is a very difficult pshat to understand, it's a lomdish pshat, that when the Yid was over Avodah Zarah, he was over Avodah Zarah almanas that the guy's never going to be Mevatla. But if the guy's being Mevatla, I never want to be over Zarah. But it was a knuzai when it was prohibited. Sava Yisrael adati the nafshei plach. When a Yid does Avodah Zarah, he's doing Avodah Zarah, so his chelik becomes also no matter what. And therefore, he mevatla of the chav and nafshei. The guy could only be mevatla his own Avodah Zarah to Yisrael lebatlu. The guy can't be mevatla the Avodah Zarah of the Yid. Igu the matni la aseifa. There are those who quoted this member of a Hill Beredi of Dvalis of the Seifa of this Mishnah. And what does it say in the Seifa? Yisrael einay mevatel avodas kechavim shalovid kechavim. A Yid can't be mevatel the getch of a guy. She does not come it's poshut. Why would I think otherwise? Amar Rab Hillel Berei, the Reb Valis, Rab Hillel Berei Valis explained the answer, and we're going to turn on to Daf Nun Gimel Omer Aleph. The chiddush is even if the guy is a shutef with the yid, he still cannot be mevatel that deserve a yid. The chamash malon yisrael who the mevatel levet lechavim. I'm sorry. In the Sefer it says that a yid can't be mevatel the avodah zarah of a guy. The Gemara asks pshita. The Gemara no, it's speaking where the guy was a shutef. The chamash malon yisrael who the mevatel levet lechavim. The yid can't be mevatel the chelik of avodah zarah of the guy. The guy could be mevatel his own chelik of the avodah zarah. Now the question is, if you have a getchka that half's a yid and half's a guy, even if the guy is mevatel, the getchka is to loser because of the yid's chelik. So the Achronim speak about cases where it would happen afkamina. There are those who quoted the member of a Pilbar of Valis referring to a different thing completely, not our Mishnah, a Bryce. And that is Reb Shimon ben Asya Omer, avodas kechavim shel Yisrael ein lo b'teilei lamas. The getchka of a yid you can never be mevatel; it's always also b'adam. Ma'ir lamas. What it means forever? Amar Pillar Reb Valis. Even if there's a shutvis with the guy and the yid, it still could never ever become mutter. Kamash lo the Yisrael adaita the nafshei palach. When a yid has avodah zarah, it doesn't matter a shutuf; he's independent of a shutuf, and therefore it becomes osher b'anah forever. Baruch Hashem, we were zoichen to finish Daf Nun Beis, and tomorrow, Beis Hashem, we're going to learn Daf Nun Gimel. A good tavach, a gebench tavach. We should have a week of much success. The hostages should be freed, and Klal Yisrael should have a Yeshua and a Geula, the Karv Mamash.